Hi, everyone. Welcome back. It's my pleasure to introduce Stephen Megitt. He will be our final speaker for our conference. Stephen earned his BA in Media, Information, and Technoculture from Western University. He is a seasoned digital industry professional and entrepreneur with decades of marketing, user experience, leadership, finance, and operations experience. Before joining EY, he served as the CEO of Filament, an award winning digital agency focused on researching, design, and developing human centered and compelling digital experiences. He has led strategy, design, and development teams on large scale, high profile digital experience projects. In addition to having his work published, Stephen has been a feature speaker at Venture for Canada, SHAD, and General Assembly UX. Outside of work, he's a fan of terrible movies, Portuguese water dogs, smoking meat, eating tacos, playing Scrabble with his wife, and teaching his kids to explore, use their imagination, and maybe get into a little bit of trouble in the process. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Megitt.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for the introduction. Let me just see if I can get my slides up here. We should be good to go. Can I get a thumbs up from everyone if they can see my slides? Perfect, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm here to talk about changing consumer behavior, COVID edition. And as my intro so eloquently put, my name is Steve, and I prefer to go by Steve rather than Steven, which is my given name, because whenever I hear the name Steven, I think that I'm in trouble. Um, I lead the EY Design Studio. It is a national practice focused on leveraging a human-centered design mindset to deliver meaningful and impactful digital experiences, as well as helping organizations redesign themselves to deliver and support new in-person services. And I want to thank the FVCPAA for having me and presenting to you all today. So you just heard me say human-centered design, and you've probably heard that before, along with words like design thinking. So I like to demystify or at least remove jargon as much as I possibly can. And if you look at the slide, really this is what we do. We identify what a business has and what a user wants or needs and design a solution that fills in that overlap. Put simply, my job is all about helping clients build brands and improve their business by focusing on customer needs, because I firmly believe that design that is good for people is ultimately good for business. So I've been doing this for a really long time, and I started doing this in my parents' basement about 22 years ago. In the digital industry, sometimes, even though I don't look like this just yet, sometimes I feel like I am this old. Thanks to the Face app from a couple of years ago, this definitely proves that artificial intelligence definitely needs an ethics engine. I was the CEO of a small and specialized digital experience design agency, Filament, before being acquired by EY in 2019. So fast forward today, and I'm still doing the things that I love, creating value for business and their customers through thoughtful and meaningful digital experience design. But why are we here today? Why am I talking to you? Well, the FVCPAA asked EY to speak about changing consumer behavior due to COVID, and I was more than happy to fit the bill. But no matter your discipline, the context in which we create value to the business and our customers, that's all changing more quickly than ever before. And it has everything to do with the ever-changing behaviors and mindset and expectations of our customers. So who remembers this experience? Pre-COVID, you walked into your local Starbucks, there's a really long line, but the barista recognizes you. You are a quote unquote regular, and they're already making your drink. Before you know it, your drink, complete with your name and smiley face, are ready at the pickup counter. Mobile ordering and pickup changes things a bit. It's seen as a little bit of a novel feature. It's convenient for sure, but especially for cities with morning rushes, your coffee is waiting for you. It's right all the time, and you never have to wait around. Q 2020, we all experienced the rapid shutdown from COVID. You can no longer, or really no longer want to, walk into a store, and we're all cut off from that in-person personalized experience that we really enjoyed. So when restrictions ease, we find that that same behavior of mobile ordering and pickup, coupled with this contactless payment becomes a little bit of a lifeline. And it becomes something that a lot of consumers are willing to adopt. And for Starbucks, it was so successful that it began fast tracking its plan to build a sizable fleet of US and Canadian based pickup only stores within 18 to 24 months instead of the 3 to 5 years that was on its roadmap. For others, almost all consumer experiences move or fail to move to online. And generally speaking, the result is that now no one knows who you are unless you're able to authenticate or log in, or you're a pre-existing customer and the company has a robust capabilities to ensure a personalized shopping experience. Now, as a brand, how do you know that you're actually delivering a customer experience that makes your customers actually feel valued and want to come back? Well, you don't. And companies without digital capabilities have been struggling with that ever since. So fast forward today, brands and organizations alike are trying to get to that point of, knowing what a customer wants before the customer even knows to ask, all in a digital context. So from the customer COVID experience standpoint, this is really at the crux of the pandemic, is that survival. How do we create a good personalized experience and engender loyalty when we can't reach our customers? Because despite the dramatic external changes brought on by COVID, our customers are still looking for those transformative, that experience, that moment of aha, that where they can get that personalized experience they've really grown accustomed to. Their expectations haven't really changed much. The modality in which those expectations can be met has changed drastically. And so you've sort of seen a lot of different brands, and maybe you've experienced this with some of the brands that you shop at, or that you offer your time and currency to, where they started experimenting while the pandemic was ongoing. And some good ones that I've seen where there was early experimentation was, if you look at Sephora, they quickly built this digital tool set where people could try on different looks through AR enabled mobile app. You could upload a photo of yourself and try on these different looks with their makeup and then purchase it all through that experience, which was valuable, helpful. I don't know who was buying a whole lot of makeup in pandemic, but it was a way to try something to continue to build a meaningful experience with customers. Indochino, a menswear company that was all personalized to begin with, you walked into a showroom, you got personalized tailoring to get your measurements, and then you just went online and bought everything that was based on your profile. Well, that business model was not able to continue during the pandemic, but they started offering these virtual style consultations. Again, not really in tune with what customers were really doing in the pandemic, but they were trying. Something that was really in tune with what customers were doing in the pandemic was cycling. So Canyon is a online only manufacturer of high-end bicycles. Now, their digital experience was okay. They were making very good revenue, but when the pandemic hit, they already had a tuned up supply chain. They already knew how to deliver globally. They already knew how to meet demand. They may not have had the inventory to meet that demand, but they were at least getting most of the hurdles out of the way. One thing that they couldn't come to grips with was fit. They couldn't they couldn't have a partnership with a local bike dealer, or they couldn't develop tools fast enough that would allow people to fit themselves to the bike properly. But that was a hurdle that they overcame as well, and people were able to fit themselves on their bike with virtual tools. So all of these efforts were geared toward trying to get in front of customers in a virtual space and understand their evolving needs. For the rest of the pandemic, we've seen this trend generally play out across retailers and industries. Now, in my bio, it said that I like smoking meat, and that is 100% true. And so when I had a problem with my Traeger pellet grill, I really didn't know what to do, but I sent a message to the Traeger customer support, and lo and behold, the experience was fantastic. And I scheduled an appointment with a customer service representative to actually use a new service called Stream, which allowed them to send me a text message with a link that opened up a web based session where this app was running. And the customer service agent could quickly look at my grill, diagnose the problem, take notes on what he was seeing with my smartphone, take pictures of what I was pointing at, and send all of that off to the warranty and claims department for me to get a replacement grill in a matter of weeks. And that probably wouldn't have been possible in a pre-pandemic environment. There would not have been this push to adopt a technology like this. My return probably would have gone through where I purchased the Traeger rather than Traeger itself. And this has been such a boon for Traeger that they've actually reported a 92% increase in customer satisfaction from call center. And this was just like an opportunity to try something. And it's resulted in such a massive enhancement to their customer service, their customer experience, and their overall bottom line. So what's happening today? That's I've been talking a little bit more about how we've been leading up to today, but what do we need to know now? Now, I'm going to show about 4 slides that are filled with stats, and I'm going to try my best not to drain the slide, but forewarned, I think I'm speaking to the right audience that likes to see numbers on slides. So, for the next 4, just know that you're going to get your wish. So what do we need to know now is that the outbreak and expectations of a recession will increase price sensitivity and elevate the private label as consumers focus on affordability. Now, I'm not going to read the left side with the stats. You guys can definitely go through that, but they're all reinforcing, the points on the right side, which is everyone is becoming more price sensitive. And we have the largest emerging customer segment focus on affordability right now. Private label is going to be something that has grown and will continue to grow as we continue to feel anxious about the ongoing pandemic and as variants creep up and as breakthrough cases start to happen. So all of that is going to be persistent and has been persistent throughout the course of the pandemic. There's also going to be increased competition for indulgence. So as things start to ease, and as we see things start to shift towards a blended mindset between staying at home and going out, you're going to see people that are going to be looking for those experiences out of home. And there's going to be a shift in where people are spending their money as that demand grows. So companies can consider balancing their brand power against how people are feeling about price and see if they can optimize the price and range of products that they can offer. Positioning a brand to differentiate with a clear indication of the value that they can bring to the customer. So really, really getting in tune with what value you are providing to the customer. And a really good way of thinking about this is a theory by Clay Christensen from Harvard, and that is the theory of jobs to be done. Everyone buys something because they want a job done, no matter what it is. So what is the job that your product is doing for your customer? And if you can identify that job to be done, you can start to uncover how you can position your products and your brand to help your customers solve or complete the job that they need to have done. Delivering affordable luxury to offset the margin lost on downtrading and channel shift. So there is going to be a focus a little bit on that indulgence, but how can you deliver an indulgence without someone breaking the bank? That's going to be something for businesses to consider. Moving towards health and wellness is becoming far more important as we live in our homes, as we find ourselves with a little bit more time due to no commuting. We tend to want to focus a little bit more on bettering ourselves and our mental health and well-being. So for that, there is a lot of health and wellness focus that is shifting into the home. So a lot of exercise equipment in the home. As you can see in my background, if I'm still visible, some of that is already there, which I feel very, very grateful for. But that is where a lot of people are focused on, whether it's body weight exercises or cooking healthy meals or, you know, getting a Peloton in their home. This is where a lot of the focus is. There's a growing demand for functional products as well. So a younger generation, they're driving this demand for products focused on physical and mental health, including sustainable products as well as plant-based and natural products as well. Getting out of that mass production and mass quantity kind of product and moving more into an artisanal and plant-based and natural product. There's also a greater focus on contact risk and hygiene. So there is still that anxiety around COVID-19 and that it's going to be sustained for a period of time. And so the demand for face masks and cleansers are going to live on beyond the outbreak. And they're really continuing to fuel that online shopping. So what companies can consider is developing a curated product and services for at-home consumption to help realize health goals as part of household routines. You know you've got a captive audience in your home. How can you shift or move products that would be in line with a more household routine? Explore healthier reformulations of existing products and develop new functional products. So finding ways to redevelop formulas or tweak some products so that they express a little bit more in line with what your customers are looking for. Ensuring and in building customer trust by assuring hygiene and safety aspect of products and services. You're seeing this all the time now in restaurants. You're seeing how contactless payments or curbside pickup is really, really focusing on hygiene and safety a little bit more than on convenience, because this is really what's important to people. There's also, you know, in line with that natural products and more plant-based products, there is this growing desire for companies to be more sustainable. And that is coming from whether it's compliance or regulated industry, or it's coming from shareholders. But this is something that's going to be far more important going forward. But just to be mindful that just because your customers, your shareholders, and regulators are more aware of a need to become more sustainable and really focus on ESG, customers themselves, there's a little bit of a say-do gap. So they say they want to be more sustainable and it's very important to them, but they are still a little bit unwilling to pay a premium for those sustainable products and services. But I would imagine that is going to change. So we can look beyond the environmental impact during the supply chain by really educating the consumer on how to use a product. That can go a long way to showing a more sustainable use for a product. Go beyond minimal compliance and differentiate with specific sustainability targets that consider anticipated future developments. And then form alliances and partnerships for effective and credible certification of initiatives and achievements. And then lastly, on the stats heavy slides, there's a massive demand that is growing for unique experiences, particularly in that Gen Z millennial segment and generation. There is a pent up demand that's going to boost these out of home activities as restrictions ease. Everything that was once inaccessible becomes a little bit of a Valhalla for people, that they want to go and spend their money on these because they've missed out on them for so long. And then the easing of restrictions and where that takes place and when that takes place is really going to control demand. So it's a little bit like a bit of a lock system in a river, where depending on what gets opened up, you're going to see a little bit more of a flood into these certain experiences. So demand for these experiences are going to fluctuate and vary by country, province, state, what have you. So younger cohorts are most likely to spend on experiences and completely overlook some of their financial constraints. And you know, I think that's probably anticipated, given that sometimes what we see in our employment situations, where we see the Gen Zs or the millennials will negotiate in favor of more vacation rather than more comp, because they're looking for the ability to balance their lives with experiences rather than the ability to purchase things. And so it's no surprise that you're going to see this younger cohort that are going to spend on experiences that give them fulfillment and enrich their lives. And they'll bite the bullet on whatever financial implications that they have. What companies can consider here is plan to offer unique and different experiences that stand out from the competition, and prepare to operate at capacity within short notice of restrictions being lifted. So really trying to tie in this agility of understanding what your customers need and the ability to respond to that as soon as you're able to, or as soon as you need to meet that demand. And understand the wants and your needs of your younger cohorts and plan to offer experiences that fit within their budget. So, those that can offer the younger cohort the ability to get those experiences without overstretching their financial constraints, you have a good opportunity to win the day. So with the big four and all of the think tanks out there, we all have our own white papers and we all have our own research. And what I just shared with you is from the EY's Future Consumer, now in its 7th iteration, with its 8th iteration coming out in July. I'm just going to summarize some of that thought leadership here. From just 4 months ago, we're seeing an increase in concerns for health, family well-being in the future, with expectations that life will get harder and maybe not easier moving forward. So, what are people saying? Well, those 3 key themes really surface. So affordability is becoming really critical, with 63% of consumers saying that price will drive their choices 3 years from now. Purpose matters more than ever. So 96% of consumers believe that brands must positively change the world. And number 3, consumers embrace data sharing. So 62% of consumers would share personal data for healthier product recommendations. And that's coming out of EY. So what are people actually thinking and feeling? Well, Accenture, I really hope there's no one from EY in the audience that's gonna, send me a message very soon for showing the Accenture logo or the McKinsey logo. But anyway, I did it. Accenture shares that consumers are more fearful for the economic impact of COVID-19 than for their own health. So 64% said that they are fearful for their own health, but 82% said they are fearful for the health of others. 64% said that they are worried about the impact on their personal job security, but 88% said that they are worried about the impact on the economy. And the virus has accelerated 3 long-term trends. So there's an ever-increasing focus on health, the rise in conscious consumption, and a growing love for local. So that feels a little bit in line with UI as well. So what are they doing and how are they reacting? Well, McKinsey has been closely tracking changing consumer behavior since the beginning of the pandemic. In their most recent installment of this series, posted last month, they cite that spending is strong, but it's bifurcated. Consumer spending is outperforming projections by 6%, with higher incomes and younger generations spending more. Omnichannel is ascendant, so 60 to 70% of consumers are omnichannel users, with both e-commerce and brick and mortar growing. Recovery differs across categories, so several categories are growing, but out-of-home activity and travel, not surprisingly, are lagging as a result of the Delta variant, and I would expect that to continue. Homebody economy, in quotes, that's going to continue. Almost 50% of consumers are, again, doing things out of home, but time spent at home continues to be far more dominant, with at-home improvement projects continuing to rise. And then as a result of all of this differentiated industry sector spending and these new experiences and these new routines, loyalty is continuously being shaken up as brands respond to different expectations of consumers. So if you've read some of these articles, you may have noticed there's a trend to encourage action and reaction and anticipation for these changes to be ready for the next, quote unquote phase. EY poses key strategic questions, encouraging leaders to reframe the future of their organization to prepare for the new normal. Accenture advises to respond, reset, and renew to thrive in the new normal. McKinsey, among other things, encourages us to redefine the journey map to win the next normal. So, I mean, it's a silly question, but what jumps out at you here? There's a big pattern of people are changing, and that's a bit of a problem. We're also naming this future context of the new normal, the next normal. We're demystifying the future by trying to name it or label it. And then what to do to get there. And that really is trying to create this framework to understand and make sense of it. But as humans, we all like to think in these kinds of constructs and these mental models to help make the unknown more approachable and less fearful. The notion of the next normal, the new normal, unprecedented times versus precedented times, it's really, really nice labeling to give us a sense of control. But if we really think about this, it just points to the thing that, the word digital transformation has been pointing to since as long as people have been using the term digital transformation. And just as a sidebar, I don't think we should be calling it digital transformation anymore. I think we can just call it transformation. But at the heart of it, in order to get to a transformation, you have to encompass rapid iteration. So that's really at the heart of everything that we're witnessing throughout the pandemic is this notion of rapid iteration. And if you look at, the pre-pandemic S curve of innovation or adoption, you see that it's this lazy S curve. It's sort of like looks really languid and, looks really comfortable. But that's what happens when you don't really have external forces that are acting on expectations and that are forcing people to change. Change happens when change happens. And it feels like it doesn't go terribly fast. But if you look at when the pandemic started, you get this almost frenetic and vertical S curve. And it's this whole notion of what COVID-19 has forced is this kill or be killed mentality around iteration, reinvention, adoption of new products and services really quite rapidly. It's that external force that's all forcing people to move and iterate. And the new normal, the next normal, whatever you want to call it, is simply calling for the need for us to respond to the environment and get comfortable with changes in human and consumer behavior. So what we are really doing is practicing getting comfortable with responding to new and unknown things that are changing and manifesting at a more rapid pace than we've experienced before, or that we're comfortable with. So if we look at, the early human hand tool, which was a downright feat of innovation, hand tools or the ability to create tools is often cited as the thing that separates the human species from every other species. And once that hand tool was created, there was no going back. Humans continued to use that hand tool for thousands of years, and it was about 300,000 years before the next new and improved model came out. Let's fast forward a little bit further into our history and look at another example of bridge construction. The Romans were the first to construct the classic semicircle arches using the combined forces of stone, gravity, friction, and create a bridge that didn't use mortar to hold the structure in place. Box girders were introduced as a radical idea in the mid 1800s, but recently, we're literally creating machines whose sole purpose is to build a bridge in a fraction of the time that it used to take us. And so as you can see here on the right, this is a bridge construction girder put into place machine that is building a massive, massive bridge in China in record time. A more recent example is the QR code. Let's look at that. That QR code, I don't know if many of you know this, but it first showed up in 1992 in Toyota. And it was supposed to be an inventory tracking mechanism, which got made obsolete for other technologies for inventory tracking like NFC and RFID. But it went dormant for a few years, maybe a decade or two, and now they're literally everywhere. You can get your vaccine passport, you can view menus, you can have cashless transactions now, all in QR code format. There's a massive, massive resurgence because customers are now putting two and two together on how to use them, and they're willing to adopt to this new technology. So it's completely blown up. And then finally, let's look at the pandemic here. When things first started to close, we saw stores globally trying different ways to approach ordering online and in-store pickup. And it was, at first, it was really confusing. And with a lot of these varied experiences from brand to brand that were just experimenting with it. But fast forward just a half a year, and the process has become streamlined. Customers are used to it. They know what to do. The expectations are clear. And Shopify has even responded within record time and built in native support for buy online, pickup in store, or curbside, or BOPIS, as it's called. It's an acronym, BOPIS, for up to 20 locations. And that's native support. You don't have to pay extra for that. That pace of innovation and rapid iteration is incredible. And the speed of adoption, even more so. At the end of 2019, 66% of retailers offered BOPIS, but shortly after the COVID-19 pandemic hit the US, the adoption of BOPIS increased to 76%. Curbside pickup has gone basically 0 to 60. In 2019, just 4% of the retailers in the Fit for Commerce Omnichannel Retail Index offered curbside pickup. Today, the service is offered by 50%, 58% of them. So what can we learn from this? When you adopt the innovative mindset, you can measure and understand how to deliver value at an incredible speed. But it also opens up gaps about your own data availability for inventory and speed of order fulfillment. But if you can get that right, if you can understand where your gaps are as you start to learn about your data availability and what your customers need from you, if you can get that right, it's a massive payoff. And it creates a little bit more convenience, but convenience really isn't a simple one size fits all solution. It varies based on how people are shopping and where they are along their path to purchase journey and what they're buying. So strategies like BOPIS ensure that the shopper has a convenient experience, regardless of the channel. So Lululemon actually reported that 20% of shoppers who chose to pick up their orders in store made an additional purchase when they came to collect it. And also, according to the International Council of Shopping Centers, so the ICSC, over 50% of adult shoppers use BOPIS, and 67% of those people add additional items to their carts when they know that they can pick it up immediately. 97% backed out of a purchase because it was inconvenient, and 70% of respondents said that buy online, pick up in store actually improved their experience with the brand. So with each change in the consumer behavior, it's almost as if there's this overwhelming feeling of having to jump over each hurdle, the new normal, the next normal, the next normal, only to find that the next one is coming even quicker than the last. Now, I'd like for us to consider that we are in a state of ongoing business transformation. The pace of changing human behavior, thus the need for adaptation, is growing. And as businesses, it's becoming harder to keep up. But what might feel like an overwhelming hill is really, in my mind, I like to frame it as just an opportunity to revisit what value your customers need from you. The more that we can empathize, test, and try, the closer we'll become to creating that optimal value in our uncertain circumstances. None of this is insurmountable, and all of this is opportunity. There's so much opportunity, and really how I've been looking at this whole pandemic is as terrible as it has been, and it has been terrible. What businesses have been given permission to do is treat this as a little bit of a playground and permission to test and try things and fail at certain things, to try things again, because there is a tolerance for that. There is a tolerance to make big bets to see if they pay off, or to make a bunch of little bets to see what kind of things they can learn that will get them closer to their customer. And going back to the research around changing consumer behavior, There's no denying that it provides a good and useful baseline in understanding of consumer trends. But businesses are unique and every customer journey is different. So to succeed in today and tomorrow's world, you need to be able to determine what we need to know to make confident decisions about the value our customers need. Meaning, you need access to your customers' data now and not 3 to 6 months from now, the next time that EY or Accenture or McKinsey puts out a white paper. Your customer data really is the key to unlocking ways that you can provide and deliver more value. But in order to do that, you do need the right tools and setup to survive that, to be able to jump this hurdle and the next and the next. And what I mean by tools and setup is that you need to have an ongoing understanding of your customers' needs and changing behaviors. And you need the right measurement tools or the data collection methods and infrastructure to take that data and make sense of it. And sometimes what you uncover leads to more decisions that you have to make about your technology and what you need in place in your organization. And none of that is bad. That's just getting you closer to optimizing the value that you're providing to your customers and allowing them to answer the question of what is the job that I need done by X brand, and allow them to say, I'm going to purchase from that brand more often. But when you've got all the ability to collect the data, you don't really want to be a DRIP, which is an acronym that stands for data rich and information poor. So data without context is really meaningless. You need to have insights that come from the data that you're collecting. And that means having process in place to collect the data and the tools and methods and mechanisms and human insights to make meaning of the data and deliver that value to arrive at a new competitive advantage. So a survey by Alteryx and the Retail Wire of nearly 350 retailers and brand manufacturers found that 81% of respondents say they gather shopper insights and 76% consider insights to be critical to their performance. The bad news is that while many merchants are collecting data, most aren't actually using it effectively. 16% consider themselves experts when it comes to data harnessing, while 24% and 60% respectively describe themselves as newbies or getting there. In other words, remove the hurdles and focus on a culture of ongoing data collection, analysis, and innovation to meet your customers where they are. Armed with this knowledge, we can more readily redefine the value we offer to customers or clients, build and test solutions, and iterate to remain relevant to our audience. So how can you do this? You invest in a CRM if you don't have one, or a better CRM that can create and track automated customer journeys when they take a specific action with your brand, either via digital experience or brick and mortar. You can use surveys or some kind of feedback loop to capture customer sentiment. You can look at website analytics, make decisions on where to address low-hanging fruit and immediate value gains in your digital experience. You can leverage tools like Full Story, which is the animation that's playing on the left here, where it will gather screen recorded sessions of your user anonymously and give you a whole host of analytics of what users are doing on what users are doing and what users are clicking on in that experience that you've created. You know, in this one over here on the left, you can see 81 rage clicks on the purchase path, or sorry, there's 34 rage clicks on the purchase path. So this would mean that an e-commerce website, Full Story had captured someone aggressively hitting their trackpad or mouse or clicking because in their mind, they were expecting the screen to do something or the experience to provide some input or feedback, and it wasn't providing it. So you know exactly where people are going to be clicking and where they're getting frustrated, and you can change that experience based on this tool that you can implement very, very quickly. So even if you're not ready for that tech-enabled approach, You can also use ethnography. So conduct customer interviews, conversations to help understand what your customers need or what they're not getting, or to really understand the expectations that they have or may not have of your brand. So from there, you can create personas that match to this new behavior and this new customer type, and create journey maps to really understand the pain points that they have with the experiences that you're creating for them. And they give you ample opportunity to try and ideate or solution new ways to improve that customer experience. And if you're not doing this, then you're really not designing from the outside, meaning the customer's perspective, in to the organization. And you're really designing from the inside out. And as much as we'd like this future sentiment to be true, you are not your audience. And or you are not your customer, whichever one holds true for you. In fact, this is so important to note that because the design index, which is something that's been tracking design thinking and design led organizations since 2015, has noted that organizations that do practice design thinking or design led methodologies of being customer centric and designing from the outside in, they outperform companies that don't on the S&P 500 by over 200%. And with all this attention being generated to the customer experience, we shouldn't really forget about the employees and their experience. These principles also imply internally in our organizations. Like customers, employees have needs when it comes to doing their job, and they deserve the right tools to make that job easier. It's important to be aware that you can do these same exercises, collecting data, understanding new opportunities to create value for your employees, because there's a clear bottom line there's a clear bottom line impact. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's talk about our very familiar experience with Amazon. When we're looking to buy something on Amazon, I'm going to say 99% of us, but that's not accurate. A good large percentage of us go to the search box first. We want the easiest way to bring up the thing that we're looking for. Amazon search is so powerful because everyone's using it, that algorithm is so finely tuned for all the possibilities that you might want, and they show them to you as suggestions, allowing you to accomplish your tasks a lot faster. It's the number one way that their customers shop. Now let's think about your own experience with your employer's intranet. Employee intranet search functions are the highest tool that's used on intranets, but all too often that search result and those search capabilities are woefully inadequate, and everybody leaves frustrated and without the info that they need. And instead, those employees who need that information to do the thing that they're trying to do, they leverage informal networks to get what they need. So they go and they find the right person who can help them solve the problem or get them the document that they need or the form that they need, which really equals time wasted and dollars lost. So if internally we were to spend the time to understand what employees need and try to bring better tools everyone knows exists and help employees do their job better and faster, then that pays dividends to the bottom line. If we look to leading brands across industries, we'll find that the kinds of experience people are having in their personal time on Saturday and Sunday is spilling over into expectations at work. There's no longer a difference in the minds of employees between how they live on the weekend versus the weekdays. And if we're measuring our employees and compensating them on performance and output, any investment that we make into doing those things easier, more efficient, has an immediate ROI. So at the design studio, this is really our favorite thing to do. At our core, we are about focusing on the audience, your customer, and creating solutions that meet their needs and that improve the user experience and that impact the bottom line. The tenet that I've held dear for so long, and how I explain to people what user experience is and what the reason why we do research is because everyone has this moment where they feel like a genius when they use a digital experience that has been thoughtfully developed and designed. It is all about putting that right content that's presented in the right way at the right audience that makes your audience feel like a genius. So I want to give you a little bit of an insight with some of the work that we did with Motion, which is Canada's largest home healthcare and mobility organization. I'm not going to dive too deep into the case study, but what I do want to show is that we started working with them right at the start of the pandemic, just a little bit before. And they had a digital experience that was essentially an online brochure. And this impacted them greatly in the course of the pandemic, with a lot of people calling their retail locations, calling their head office, wanting to understand more about Motion, how they can get their products. They had a vulnerable audience as well, who were elderly, living at home, that really needed to have someone come to them and fix their wheelchair or fix their stair lift, or they needed to come into a retail location and get fitted for a device. And none of this was really possible within the first little while of the pandemic. But as we built out their digital experience, we took all of this into consideration. We did customer interviews. But when we launched, what we found is that by and large, there was this outpacing of requests or conversions for people using the rentals form. So people wanted to know how to rent a stair lift or rent a wheelchair or rent other devices from Motion. And when we were able to surface, by looking through their Google Analytics from their digital experience data, when we were able to surface this for them, they finally were able to put two and two together, where they were noting that rentals was consistently underinvested in from an internal perspective. And they knew that the customer experience was inconsistent across locations. And so what we were able to highlight for them was the ability to show that your customers are coming to your website specifically for rentals, and they're not getting what they're coming for. And the experience that they're having is inconsistent, or people aren't answering their questions in a way that's meeting their expectations. So this led to an operational change that allowed them to really focus on rentals. And that has helped increase the conversion rates by upwards of 10%. And this all came from just capturing data from activity on their website and using free and available tools from Google. Hair, which is a high-end e-commerce brand that we did some work for, we did a UX audit. We looked at their website and how people were interacting with it, and we made some recommendations. So the focus of our work really encompassed a UX audit, so strategic recommendations, design and implementation of recommendations, and we looked at things like the labels of navigation. So what were people clicking on in order to get to the products that they were trying to buy? What were people inputting in the search bar to try and see if there's a misalignment between what people were actually coming to the website for and searching for, and line that up with the nomenclature and the taxonomy that the company is using to describe or classify those same products. And so what we were able to do, and with those recommendations being implemented, we were able to increase their mobile conversions exceeding 3%, where before it was at 1.5. The average order value increased to a significant degree as well. And then bounce rates decreased by 15%, and pages per visit increased from 2.3 pages per visit to over 4. And we were able to essentially create a whole scoreboard and dashboard for the executives to log in to Google Data Studio and look at what is happening on their website at any given time, and the behavior that people are taking on their website at any given time. And we've done all that through event tagging with Google Tag Manager and Google Data Studio. And again, all of this was possible from just looking at their website analytics, where and what people were clicking on, and what they were using in Google search and matching that up with site nomenclature. And that had a net impact on revenue and it increased the user experience tremendously. So I'm just about to wind down and get to the Q&A. But I wanted to end today with a quote from my co-leader at the design studio, Walid El-Zogby. He's the executive creative director, and he, like me, spent decades in industry and agencies before coming into EY and starting up this fun thing called the design studio. And he says, above all, remember that context isn't static. Embedding continuous means of gathering and evaluating context can make the resulting digital experience you create as flexible as it is robust. Hit the mark there and you can unlock needed agility this year and beyond. Thank you very, very much. I will stop sharing now and open it up to some Q&A.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That was great. I do have a couple questions here. So someone is asking, how much would a small business expect to invest into customer research, such as POS, CRM, website analytics, etc., in order to gather a satisfactory amount of information? And how long do you need to track this data before it being helpful?
That is an amazing question. And I don't want to give a consultant answer of it depends, but I'm forced to say it depends. So it really does depend on the complexity of the organization and what it is that they're selling, how they're selling it, where they're selling it. So is it brick and mortar and omni-channel? A CRM is something that really needs to be aligned to the size and shape of your organization as well. You can buy something that's enormous, or you can buy something that's right sized, or you can buy something that is just a little bit too big for you right now, but you can grow into it. I would expect that anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks for a discovery and a research phase to identify the right tool for you or a small business would be appropriate. The costs associated with that, I would say you could probably get a skinny team to deliver value and impact and a good roadmap and direction forward, anywhere between, $30,000 to $50,000. But again, that depends. You could, and based on some of those requirements, you could skinny that down. But I would say budget somewhere around $50,000 for something that's going to provide the right information for now and future.
Thank you. I've got another question here asking, do you have any insight on whether there will be a divergence of experiences and services provisions towards unvaccinated versus vaccinated?
Okay, so I don't have any literature or research that's been done on that, but if I'm looking at the way the wind is blowing, we're not going to be able to travel without vaccine passports. We're not going to be able to enjoy some of the things that are out of home without status. So do I think there's going to be a divergence there? I think there's going to be a trend towards a little bit less anxiety and experiences around that status of being vaccinated. I think people are going to be more willing to spend money knowing that they're safe or purportedly safe than not. So again, I don't have research on that, but that would be my gut, is that people are going to be spending money where they are going to feel safe. And if they're not going to spend money out of home, then they are going to be spending money in home where they know that they feel safe.
Thank you. And then I have a comment that maybe you wanted to also comment on yourself is from it's Michelle. It says, we have been evolving and changing since the beginning of time. Example, World War I and II, just two examples of how we continue as a society to pivot. In a short time, I think that this is not the last time that we will get a shakeup and have to pivot. I believe instead of thinking of a new normal, we should really just stay on our toes and be ahead of opportunities and new ways to do business before the next big thing happens. Did you agree?
I would absolutely agree. For me, there's so many examples of disruption. There's so many examples of transformation. There's so many examples of disruptors who completely overtook industries getting disrupted themselves. Like once, Tony Saldana, who was the former CEO of Procter and Gamble, has a great book called Why Digital Transformations Fail. And 7 out of 10 digital transformations fail because of a whole bevy of reasons. But the 5 stages that he proposes of transformation, there is a stage where you are at the end of the spectrum, you are finally, transformed digitally. And that's the only point where you are shaping the market, because you are constantly evolving, you are constantly innovating, you're constantly introducing new and innovative products and services and partnerships and ecosystems, because you have built that culture of constant innovation. That stage before, where you have achieved broken down silos and you have achieved transformation within your organization, if you stop there, you will get disrupted. And that's exactly what happened to P&G. It's what happens to a number of companies, that they put in all of this investment to try and finally get to this digital transformation, but they haven't taken that one step further to become fully transformed and continue to shape and reshape the market for everything that they do. Everyone just kind of gets there and like, are we digital yet? Yes. Okay, awesome, cool. Let's just sit back and relax and enjoy this ride. But you got to go a little bit further. You have to keep on progressing and innovating. And that's why, for me, all of this is not about transformation. It is all about incremental, rapid innovation that eventually leads to transformation.
All right, there's one more question that came in. Someone's asking if you have any suggestions for good books on transition.
Why did digital transformations fail? By Saldana. Was there something else?
Sorry. Suggestions for good books on trends, it looks like it was supposed to say, on future trends.
On future trends. So the challenge with books is that by the time they come out, the trends are already gone. So I would continue to focus on, depending on your industry, but for retail and consumer, I love Retail Dive. I love all of the industry magazines or trade publications online that continuously develop white papers. Those are always great, but Retail Dive is always fantastic. That's my go-to. Wired is also my go-to. So those two are things that I love reading. I also love reading Harvard Business Review. And quite honestly, YouTube has some just amazing content. Harvard YouTube has amazing content. The Creative Destruction Lab also has amazing content that will highlight trends. A lot of the incubators for startups also develop white papers. So Y Combinator, a very popular startup incubator in San Francisco, they develop white papers that really show trends. And one thing that you can actually look to see what is very early is a website called Product Hunt. And what that is a community of startups that release their products on Product Hunt, and people get to upvote them. And so there's content that is produced to describe what this company does, what this product or service does, and then the community votes on it. So you get to see this little pulse of innovation that's happening right when it's starting, and you see this community of really, really early adopters that are starting to see value in products and services that have not hit anywhere close to mass market.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. We've totally enjoyed this presentation. I have to say, something keeps coming to mind, and I was actually going to post this question to Patricia, but it's more of something to think about. What if we lost the internet for a while? Then what? Before I go and announce our winners, we've got a couple of housekeeping things to do. First of all, actually, we got a lot of thank yous to do. So first of all, Mitch and MS Productions, thank you so much for being with us for the last couple of days. And it's been really great having you guys as part of our team. And whenever I think about us as a board and Patricia and Mitch, it's like all of us together. So thank you so much. You rock in all the stuff that you do, and thank you for being here. We got a couple of special thank yous. Patricia works her butt off for us all the time, and we have a little thank you for you from the board, as well as Denise. So Denise is over here in the wings. She's the one that's organized all of our speakers over the last 2 days. So we have a little thank you for Denise. So if you guys can come up, I've got a little something. So hopefully there's a little bit of relaxation in here. So thank you very much for all you do. And thank you for all the phone calls and getting us organized all the time. And lastly, I'm just making sure I've got all my notes. Thank you to all of you for joining us and spending your last couple of days with us. It's great that we've been able to do this for a second year running, and who knows, next year maybe we'll actually be in person. Wouldn't that be cool? Prizes. I guess you guys are wondering who won the prizes. So first of all, we've got Terry Griffith's book, The Plugged In Manager. And we have 2 of them to give away, and they're going to go to Christine Pauls and Natalie Latowsley. I'm sorry, Natalie. But congratulations, you guys have a book coming to you. Now, I don't know if you guys recall, we had Michelle Cederberg present to us before, and she will be coming back to us in 2022. And we have her book, The Success Energy Equation. And so 5 lucky people get one of these books, and it goes to Kelly Mead, Michael Manley, Jaila Chan, Lachlan Watley, and Debbie Winter. So congratulations to you 5. And lastly, we've got the $200 gift card to SNL or Town Hall Public House, whatever you decide, and that one goes to Lena Douglas. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining us over the last couple of days, and I look forward to seeing you, I guess in the new year when we get back together in January. So take care, happy holidays, and all the best to you guys. Stay safe. Talk soon. Ciao.